Ukrainian sniper-like drone operators versus heavy Russian artillery. Sides try to assert superiority on the battlefield before negotiations begin. In a first-time ever joint interview, Trump says Musk will not be involved in any situation that might pose a conflict of interest. However, who will oversee Musk remains unclear. The State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, DPSU, released footage on Wednesday describing as showing drone attacks targeting Russian army vehicles in the Kramatorsk district of the Donetsk region. According to DPSU, drone operators from its Phoenix unit destroyed 8 military trucks and 11 other vehicles in areas of Kramatorsk. The Russian Ministry of Defense also released footage on the same day, claiming it shows a Buk M2 air defense system striking an aerial target belonging to the Ukrainian forces, as well as targeting positions of the Ukrainian army equipped with Gyatsynt-S howitzers. Meanwhile, U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine Keith Kellogg arrived in Kyiv on Wednesday for a planned meeting with officials and President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Commenting on his visit to Kyiv, Kellogg said this is a chance to have good potential negotiations.
I think we're going to listen. We understand the need for security guarantees. It's very clear to us the importance of sovereignty of this nation, the independence of this nation as well. And part of my mission is to sit and listen and say, okay, what are your concerns?
Kellogg's trip came a day after U.S. President Donald Trump suggested that Kyiv was to blame for the war, an invasion that will enter its fourth year next week, as talks between top American and Russian diplomats in Saudi Arabia took place sidelining Ukraine and its European supporters.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said his US counterpart Donald Trump is living in a Russian disinformation space. That comes after Trump claimed on Tuesday that Zelenskyy's approval rating among Ukrainians stands at just 4%. But the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology said Zelenskyy's rating had risen to 57% at the beginning of February.
Раз вже говоримо про 4%. Ми бачили цю дезінформацію. Ми розуміємо, що вона йде від Росії. Ми розуміємо це, і у нас є докази, що ці цифри вони обговорюються між Америкою і Росією. Ну, тобто, на жаль, президент Трамп з великою повагою до нього відносимося як до лідера народу, який ми дуже поважаємо, американський народ, який нас постійно підтримує. На жаль, живе в цьому дезінформаційному просторі.
Trump also criticized Ukraine for not holding a presidential election that was originally scheduled for March or April last year. That vote was postponed as the constitution doesn't permit elections to take place under martial law, which was declared in 2022, the day of the Russian invasion. The Kremlin has repeatedly tried to use the delay to portray Zelenskyy as illegitimate. Speaking at the Munich Security Conference on Saturday, Zelenskyy said he's open to discussing elections in Ukraine, but is reluctant to lift martial laws that could weaken the country's defense. Also on Tuesday, Trump appeared to blame Ukraine for the Russian invasion, saying the Ukrainians should never have started it. That came in response to criticism from Zelenskyy and other Western leaders that Ukraine wasn't invited to participate in peace talks with Russia and Saudi Arabia.
Residents in Kyiv have expressed both skepticism and concern about the meeting between US and Russian diplomats in Saudi Arabia. The talks were aimed at negotiating an end to the war in Ukraine, but did not include any officials from the war-torn country.
Прийнятно, да, це неприйнятно для України. Я згодна з нашим президентом, підтримую його наполегливість в тому і напор в тому, щоб, звичайно, Україна була присутня, не те, що присутня, а диктувала свої умови, тому що країна-агресор не може прийти і диктувати свої умови, і тим паче посередники,
In Moscow, however, some locals believe that Russian interests should be a top priority.
Мы слишком много потеряли, чтобы эти уступки совершать. Поэтому, конечно, хочется мира, но при этом нужно идти до конца. Для своих, то есть отстаивать все-таки свои интересы в первую очередь. И я надеюсь, что наш президент в этой ситуации поступит правильно.
Outside of the warring nations, there are concerns surrounding the safety of Europe in general. In Poland, for example, a NATO nation that borders Ukraine, many fear that a deal made between Washington and Moscow could damage security and democracy both on the continent and beyond.
US President Donald Trump appeared on his first joint TV interview with Elon Musk, aired in primetime on Fox News Channel. In this pre-recorded interview, the president reiterated his goals to bring down inflation and claimed that Musk's Department of Government Efficiency would find over $1 trillion of what the administration considers wasteful government spending. However, since Musk himself is a businessman heavily involved in several sectors, the main question was, how will it work when there is a conflict of interest?
I mean, I haven't asked the president for anything ever.
And if it comes up, how will you handle it?
Well,
He won't be involved.
yeah, I'll recuse myself if it is.
If there's a conflict, he won't be involved.
Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't want that, and he won't want it.
Right, and obviously I'm getting a sort of a daily proctology exam here. You know, it's not like I'll be getting away from something in the dead of night.
Trump mentioned during that same interview that Musk is probably not happy with things like tax breaks for electric vehicles likely not being included in tax legislation, which is now being discussed in Congress. But he said Musk didn't seek any special treatment for Tesla. Musk has drawn criticism from Democrats in Congress and others for the methods he and his team at Dodge are using to cut spending, including foreign aid and eliminating jobs across federal administration.
Family members of Israeli hostages held in Gaza expressed mixed emotions of happiness and grief ahead of the next release. The mother of a hostage held by Hamas, who is not slated to be released in the first phase of the ceasefire, said she is worried about the ceasefire holding.
I'm scared. I won't get to the point where I can hug him and feel him again and start our lives again. There's a chance this is the end, and I'm really terrified, and we haven't got to the second stage yet.
The surprise acceleration in releases were apparently in trade for Israel's allowing mobile homes and construction equipment into Gaza. Israel began allowing entry of rubble-removing equipment on Tuesday, including bulldozers from Egypt that were seen cleaning rubble near the Rafah border crossing. Meanwhile, Palestinians in Gaza expressed hope that the ceasefire will hold as the first phase nears its end. The warring sides have yet to negotiate the second phase, in which Hamas would release dozens more hostages in exchange for a lasting ceasefire and an Israeli withdrawal. Belgium is reinforcing maritime police forces at the harbor of Antwerp to fight rising drug violence. Belgian Interior Minister Bernard Quinten confirmed that 100 extra people would be hired as he attended daily inspections. The port of Antwerp is an important location within Belgium's broader fight against drug-related violence. More than 7,000 people were checked at the port last year, and 51 suspects have already been arrested this year. Efforts are being accelerated after the country's capital, Brussels, saw a wave of drugs-related violence in recent weeks. The city saw 6 shootings related to drug gangs in the span of just 2 weeks, with 2 people killed since the start of February. Quinten and Justice Minister Annelies Verlinden have committed to reinforcing police forces in both Antwerp and Brussels. Thousands of people joined a funeral procession on Tuesday evening for the 14-year-old victim of a deadly stabbing attack in the Austrian town of Villach. Following the march, a church service was held, also attended by top politicians, including Federal Chancellor Alexander Schallenberg, who came from Vienna. 5 other people were injured in the knife attack on Saturday, including 2 other teenage boys. The suspect, a 23-year-old Syrian, was arrested after the attack. Authorities said on Sunday that the suspect had possible connections to the Islamic State group, but appeared to have acted alone. The attack comes at a time when the topic of migration has taken center stage in many European countries, including Austria. Far-right leader Herbert Kickl called for a rigorous crackdown on asylum in the wake of the attack.
Tedeschi alle urne il 23 febbraio. Noi siamo a Roma e vogliamo sapere quanto sanno gli italiani di queste elezioni così importanti non soltanto per il futuro della Germania ma anche per quello dell'Europa. Sentiamo cosa ci dicono. E sa qualcosa di queste elezioni in Germania?
No, assolutamente.
E se io le mostro queste foto, lei sa chi sono?
Almeno un paio di questi sì, onestamente, non tutti e quattro. Un rappresentante del governo uscente e un rappresentante del governo dell'estrema destra tedesca.
So che sono a breve e che c'è il partito di estrema destra che potrebbe entrare nella compagine di governo, che è stato Elon Musk ha spinto affinché questo partito entri nella compagine di governo, ma ci sono state manifestazioni molto imponenti a Monaco e in altre città della Germania contro l'ingresso di questo partito nel governo.
Non sappiamo un granché, so che c'è una grossa recessione, perché di questa cosa se ne è parlato più volte, e siamo passati forse da un eccesso di informazione con la Merkel a qualcosa che adesso sembrerebbe quasi scomparso, quindi onestamente no, di fatto non so un granché.
Sono i Power Rangers? Assolutamente no. No, non li conosco. Penso siano parlamentari. Giusto? L'ho azzeccato? Ok, però non so chi siano. Lei sembra un po' la Meloni, eh?
Grazie.